Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate you very much. So before I get started, I just need to take a breath. So I'm going to tell you a quick story about something I learned about Samia and I. So yesterday we went for a quick coffee, and we met one of our Atlantic staff reps. And I'm not going to say who it is, but he may be from Halifax and really tall. And so he looks over, so Samia and I approach him, and we stand up, Samia on the left, me on the right, and he said, "Oh, Samia, you startled me. I didn't hear you coming." And she said, "Oh, and Jen?" And he said, "Oh no, Jen's like a dump truck driving down a dirt road. I hear her coming from a mile away. Lana, Danielle, and Len, we have to do something about this for sure." Bon, on commence. Bon matin, confrères et consoeurs et toutes les invités ici à Montréal pour notre Conseil canadien. Je veux remercier premièrement nos amis au Québec pour votre accueil cette fin de semaine, votre enthousiasme pour notre travail syndical et pour votre solidarité incassable. Vous étiez là pour vos amis de la région de l'Atlantique quand nous avons battu contre une menace qui s'appelle CN. Votre directeur, Daniel Cloutier, et mon ami, tu es toujours prêt à mobiliser à la défense des travailleuses et travailleurs. Merci et merci à vous toutes et tous. All right. Friends, today is Saturday morning. Saturday mornings at one time meant cartoons and superheroes. I look around and see people who inspire me every single day, inspire me through friendship, push me to grow and learn, and with big, ferocious hearts are out there changing this world. Well, friends, today and every day, you're the superheroes. And speaking of superheroes, I get to work with a few. Thank you to the ARC executive and committees, to Morgan Palmer, our incredible ARC chair. Thank you for the work and for your friendship and that beautiful smile that always lights up the room. There it is. The Atlantic Area Director and my very good friend Mike McMullen, and all of our staff and activists doing the work in the Atlantic region every single day. To our one-person organizing department, Patrick, thank you for inspiring workers. Your entire department is filled with hope for a better life for workers. This year we welcomed many new members in rail and early childhood education. And a little secret, we may be adding to our offshore family really soon. This super cool leadership team that I get to work with supports each other through the toughest of days. Thank you for teaching me to push through the fear. And Lana, for showing all of us that it doesn't matter if locals are 200 or 2,000 members. We fight just as hard. Today I want to talk to you about hope, the quiet, unwavering force that resides in each of us. Hope isn't only a wish or a dream. It's actually a powerful belief in the possibility of a better tomorrow. It is the light that shines in our darkest moments, reminding us that we can rise above our challenges. It's been quite a year in the Atlantic. I have said it many times, and so does Len. We may be small, but we sure are mighty. For just a moment, I ask that you think of the stories that inspire you. The ones where someone faced adversity but chose to believe in something better. Because you see, they didn't see obstacles as the end. They saw them as stepping stones. Hope allows us to envision a path forward, even when we believe there may be no path at all. Friends, I'm super excited to tell you about the incredible stories of this past year that have kept me inspired. And we can't talk about hope without reflecting on the hope that this entire country had when the lucky seven crew members of FFAW Unifor were found alive after their ship was reported missing back in July. And the FFAW has fearlessly been battling multinational corporations and our federal government to get some sensible rules around the cod fishery that is opening up after decades of rebuilding this stock. Last year, when I spoke to delegates in Halifax, my remarks were like a long to-do list of things that I was hopeful we'd accomplish in our region and in our union. We were gearing up for a lot of really big fights. Since then, Unifor members and staff in the Atlantic have friggin' crushed it. We took on one of Canada's richest and most powerful corporations by taking one of its smallest units on strike in Eastern Passage, Nova Scotia. I am forever changed because of these members. Their bravery, strength, solidarity, and friendship continues to inspire me every single day. We made headlines as we called out CN Autoport's use of scab labor. See, within minutes of setting up this legal picket line, scabs were on site doing their work. Shame. This strike helped make the case crystal clear as the federal government passed anti-scab legislation and as we got a similar anti-scab bill tabled in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. But Unifor, we need help. We're asking for you to demonstrate Unifor hope and Unifor power. Right now, we have members that are going to be bringing petition sheets to your rows, and I'm asking you to sign this petition to the government of Nova Scotia that will tell them how many people are fighting for and support this bill. You don't have to live in Nova Scotia to sign, so please add your signature. Our big Unifor family rallied together to show CN just how powerful Unifor is. Thank you to our friends in Quebec, who shut down a road in and out of Montreal's Autoport, just for a few hours. And also to our friends in the West, where in Winnipeg, stopped a CN train. And to our Ontario friends, who I heard had quite the extravagant plan, but never got to execute it, we also thank you. Because this is what Unifor solidarity looks like. And our members in Little Eastern Passage, Nova Scotia, were empowered and felt the army standing behind them. I am a proud railway worker, and it is only appropriate that my first strike in this role would be a rail fight. A lot of work goes into leading a strike. Many hours getting to know people who are making the ultimate sacrifice to stand up to greed takes time. During these hours, I made many new friends, including 4 of Unifor's best picket line goons: Peter Coombs, Barry Lines, Ken Anderson, and Steve Morgan. You came in with your huge hearts and helped us build a fight back that I am so incredibly proud of. Every day, you built hope that this fight, although tough, would be worth it. We reached a deal for those members. Thank you for the strength and commitment all of you showed us during that fight, especially Local 100. The president and the fearless Corey Will, Simon Moreau, Chris Garrett, Shane Silver, and others, staff rep Adam Hersey, other locals, and my newest friends at Lodge 1 in Eastern Passage. Together, we showed every employer what the most important lesson actually is. Don't come for Unifor, or Unifor will come for you. And wow, did we come to bargaining tables ready for these employers this year? Firstly, congrats to Local 434, who just ratified an agreement at Maybeck Canucks Excel, led by staff rep Darlene McIver and Paul Seaboyer, who got incredible wage increases and improvements, but we're so proud that they will now be able to fly the Unifor flag at that workplace. Amazing. Congrats to Local 2121, our Terra Nova offshore friends who just got a tentative agreement with the incredible leadership of President Robert Cody, Gary Pinson, and staff rep Mike McMullen. Our healthcare workers whose work demonstrates strength and love We have rallied hard to save public health care and bargain even harder. Imagine the hope at the bargaining tables of Dominion Local 597 workers in Newfoundland and Labrador and Sobeys Local 1971 workers in Cape Breton when they secured the biggest gains for grocery workers in generations. Thank you, Carolyn Rice, Greg McIsaac, Sharon Walsh, Tom McNamara, and your fierce bargaining committees for always having hope. Marine Atlantic members at Local 4285 and 4286, who operate the ferry that runs the aquatic leg of the Trans-Canada Highway between Cape Breton and two ports in Newfoundland and Labrador. Your employer had a history of dodging and delaying bargaining for years. But this time, the committee led by President Brian Jobs and Staff Rep Zoltan Sipel filed for conciliation as soon as they could. And we got that deal done. The employer wasn't happy, but we were. We said, no more employer. Speaking of employer, I think you know what's coming next. We are also standing with Bell members who fight tirelessly for each other as they face challenging times and fight off corporate greed every single day. We are with you during these times of great uncertainty, friends. Friends, we speak about hope for a different world. One where people, all people, deserve to be treated with kindness, shown love, and never judged. Like our good friend at the Humanity Project, a farm where people are supported through rehabilitation and support in Moncton. See, our friend shared what his life was like before he moved to the farm. He felt lost. He thought there was no one to help him, and he wasn't sure, actually, how to help himself. His story, so inspiring. The story of courage, the story of hopes, goals and ambitions, and a determination to help others. We were so inspired that Unifor members in New Brunswick from our forestry, telco, and rail sectors came together to build 21 tiny homes for unhoused people in the Moncton area to support those struggling with their mental health and addiction. Last winter, more than 20 individuals had a Unifor-built roof over their heads who otherwise would have been out in the cold. I don't know if I could be more proud. You all have made an incredible difference, gave people a second chance, and showed others what joy, hope, and love can do to change this world. Well, it may be a little hard work, of course. Imagine the power of a single text message that says, today, the first 4 people move into their own space. Tonight, they sleep in their very own bed in a safe space that is warm and comfortable. Thank you, Atlantic family, for this incredible work. Your work will change many lives. I also believe that all of our lives are changed by this work as well. Who's that? Whoa. Every day I am inspired by the messages from our members working hard on the ground who have hope that on October 21st, we will defeat Premier Blaine Higgs in New Brunswick. New Brunswick Premier Blaine Higgs needs to go. I would say one of his proudest achievements must be his newest ranking as Canada's worst premier. This man has inspired, all right. He has inspired hatred and division. He is building a province and dividing us based on the languages we speak, the places we live, who we love, or what we ask to be called. What he has done to New Brunswickers is disgusting. But friends, I will say that we are fighting back with incredible hope that a better New Brunswick is coming. and we are fighting back hard. We have mobilized and are out talking to our members, door knocking with candidates and finding friends and allies that are rowing in the same direction. But this is going to take all of us in New Brunswick. We need to vote. We are workers, and our voices matter. They matter in our legislatures everywhere. Every single vote is important. I don't know how many times I've heard from people who didn't vote say, it's only one vote. It is never only one vote. Always use your power at election time. You don't have to make it complicated. Ask simple questions. Are people better off with our education system, our healthcare system, affordability, and are we building spaces I want to live and raise a family in? I wore a shirt on Thursday that said, "Vote like your families depend on it," because they do. Thank you to Adam Costain, Aaron Howell-Sharp, Martin Melanson, Tamara Davidson-Kelly, Bill Kudla, Jody Dallaire, Josh and Aaron, and all of the volunteers that are out there doing this important work on the ground. In the words of Doretta Strickland, FFAW Unifor, we put them in there, we can vote them the fuck out. Hope comes to us in many forms. We find it in joy and celebration, but also in devastation and sadness. This year, March 31st, we mark the 20th anniversary of the West Tray Law, a law that came as a result of 26 miners dying in 1992 in Nova Scotia. A law that was meant to hold employers accountable for the consequences of their actions. Despite this law being passed in Canada, and despite 1,000 workers on average losing their lives in workplaces every year, only 11 employers have been convicted under this law. Shame. 4 in Ontario, 5 in Quebec, 1 in British Columbia, and 1 this past year in New Brunswick. We attended that sentencing hearing in New Brunswick. 6 years for a supervisor whose negligence led to an 18-year-old Michael Henderson dying at work. 6 years. 2024 started out with a very sad and tragic accident at the Halifax shipyard, where one of our members from MWF Local 1, Jamie Knight, a dad and husband, died at work. This workplace rallied around each other, and the union rallied around them too. Next, tragedy struck at FFAW Unifor, and we all mourned when Trevor Childs and Nicholas Skinner, an uncle and nephew team, died on April 24th while working on the ocean. These are reminders of how important health and safety is in our workplaces and that this work never, ever ends. We send our love and support to these locals, co-workers, friends, family, and community who mourn the loss of our members. We must continue to bargain health and safety and work to improve laws as well as ensure our employers are doing their part. Now, let's talk about some other things that have truly inspired me this year. Some of you may have heard this story. The Nova Scotia NDP leader, Claudia Chender, asked us to bring a Unifor delegation to the legislature on September 12th to witness her party table a bill to declare intimate partner violence an epidemic. In the weeks prior, our ARC Women's Committee, Coram Beeman, Aaron McDonald, and Doretta Strickland met with the Liberals in New Brunswick, and aside from the Nova Scotia NDP, the PCs in Nova Scotia, to discuss intimate partner violence and the need to acknowledge the severity of this issue, especially in Nova Scotia, where 1 in 3 people in a relationship report being a victim of violence. We arrived at the legislature on the 12th, filled with incredible hope. We spoke to the media and told them why this bill was really important, and that as a union that trains women's advocates in workplaces across the country, We hear about people facing violence every single day. But additionally, we are hearing that resources that should be available to them are actually at capacity. When there is no safe place for someone experiencing domestic violence in Canada to go, we are indeed in an epidemic. When the only safe place for a woman to go is the workplace, we are indeed in an epidemic. As we sat in the gallery and watched the tabling of the bill, we were all pretty proud, including Matt Blois and Adam Slaunwhite, our brothers who supported us and joined us that day. After the bill was introduced, the Nova Scotia NDP had a special member statement to recognize Corinne Beeman, a brave survivor of domestic violence, for her activism. I'm not going to make you stand up, Corinne, but I know you're out there. Her MLA stood proudly and thanked Corinne for her work as the women's advocate in the Halifax shipyard, for her work with women's shelters across the city, for fighting for and winning paid domestic violence leave, and so much more. Imagine how incredibly proud we were to be sitting in that gallery with her. We left the gallery in time to see Premier Tim Houston speaking to reporters. We went over to hear what he was saying. And I watched as Corinne's smile left her face, the hope fading and tears filling her eyes. Premier Houston just made the statement, without even reading that bill, that legislation was not necessary. He believed that he verbally made the statement, and that should be enough. Yeah. But we all know that words are only words until words are put into action. And when Houston turned to leave, it seems four of us were in between him and the only way out of Province House. Lana Payne tells us when we have an opportunity, we seize it. Corinne refused his handshake that day and told him how disappointed she was in his decision and his comments. You see, I have learned that being a loud woman who stands up for justice is just never fucking convenient for some. Our message was clear. For government to declare intimate partner violence an epidemic would say so much about his priorities as Premier. It would show survivors who are being turned away from overfull shelters that their government cared enough about their situation to recognize it and treat it like the public health emergency that it is. That this legislation meant so much more than words on paper, especially to survivors. We reminded the Premier that he could be the leader in Canada to pass this legislation first and demonstrate to survivors, to children of survivors, to victims who will never see this legislation and their families that they indeed matter. Tim pushed back a bit, saying his government was doing things to improve the situation, and he didn't think this bill would change that. By this time, reporters had caught on that the Premier had not managed to leave the building, that four bullies stopped him in the hallway, and they slowly came around the corner to capture photos of our heated discussion. But Corinne left the Premier with one final thought. Corinne, all 5.5 feet of her, asked him, with her finger pointed at him in the air, what if this was your daughter? Would it be important then? He didn't respond. Probably couldn't. Said he couldn't meet with us in the hallway and turned and left. And we walked away. However, not losing hope and that we would continue to knock on his door until this legislation is passed. Suddenly, out in the parking lot, we hear, Jennifer, Unifor, wait. Turning around, recognizing the voice. When I turn around, I'm like, you talking to me? Yes, wait. It's the friggin' premier running after me in the parking lot. To say this is not what I was expecting is an understatement. He asked, can we chat? And Premier Houston looked at the four of us and said, I took a moment to review the bill and to think about what you said. How would you feel if we went back in there and passed this legislation today? I can't explain how that moment felt, but for a second, the world stood still, knowing the world is about to change. And Corin's still pissed, by the way. She gives him a look and says, well, that would be good. But you know you shouldn't have said that you didn't support the bill. It was a day. Mr. Houston must understand, Corin Beeman, that well-behaved women rarely make history. So back in we went and watched from the gallery as Tim Houston's House Leader called the bill for second reading. And the NDP, Liberal, and PC leaders stood to offer remarks and support. Tissues were passed around the gallery and on the floor of the legislature. Then the Speaker immediately called for third reading, and then a motion to skip the review through the Law Amendments Committee. Everyone in unanimous support, and every politician stood to look up at us in the gallery and clapped and cheered. That day, there was no color in the legislature, and the moment as rare as a shooting star. Many politicians came and told us that with tremendous hope, stories of survival, and how they have been advocating for this legislation for decades. Folks, we passed that bill in 10 minutes. That has not happened in the modern history of the Nova Scotia legislature. Unifor made history that day. We were asked, how did you change the Premier's mind in 20 minutes? And looking back on this, although it took 20 minutes of tremendous courage, this win is because of many who for decades have been working to end domestic violence. Millions of women and allies around the world over decades. Continuous effort from the labor movement, civil society, community groups, engaged voters, and the survivors brave enough to share their stories to change hearts and minds, and the victims that never got to tell theirs. This is their victory too. Corin didn't mumble that day. Instead, she let out a huge roar. So proud of you. And Corin said this fight isn't only about Corin. This fight is for women and men and children and victims and families who are survivors and who are about to become survivors. My very good friend, Archie McLaughlin, reminds me very often, the longest journey begins with a single step. And this time, a single step in front of a premier trying to leave brought us our next big win. There's still a lot of work to do, but we are so happy to begin that work. Because if we look for an end to the work we do, then we're going to forever be disappointed. But when we look for wins, we will find them and celebrate them as they give us the energy to make our way to the next win. The day was about empowering people who needed to hear that their government cares about them, and the power of the labor movement. What a truly special moment in time. The very next day, the Newfoundland and Labrador government reached out to set up a meeting. Looking forward to that one. Friends, this victory is possible across every single province in this country. So I encourage you to get to work. This work has taught me many things. One thing that I learned from this past year is that we see Unifor's big moments. However, we don't see all of the work being done behind the scenes. The hours no one sees. The decisions to try, no one sees. The courage to step out of our comfort zone, no one sees. The hope of a different world, no one sees. We have had an amazing year of victories across the Atlantic region that is built upon the often silent and hidden work that so many of you do each and every single day. See, winning isn't only the big event, that one moment that everyone talks about, because it's also about the things that no one sees. Honestly, friends, this work brings such joy. It brings better things for workers, for families, and for our communities. Let us choose to believe in ourselves, in our ability to create change, and in the strength of our communities. Together, we can cultivate a culture of hope, one that encourages resilience, compassion, and unwavering determination. As we move forward, let us carry hope in our hearts. Friends, sometimes you need to listen for it, because hope whispers quietly, slowly replacing doubt with the courage of possibility. Thank you for working with me, all of you, with all of us, to build a better world for everyone. Love and solidarity. Solidarité.